What is going on, everybody? It is great to have you with me. I know it's been a couple weeks since you've seen some content live on Purple and Gold for Days. Sorry, everybody. Been a crazy couple of weeks for me. Some things going on in life, work, daddy duties, the whole kit and caboodle, as they say. Didn't have a chance to go over the divisional round of the playoffs. I might circle back just for one of those games. That excited us more than anything else. But $90 million guaranteed for 2 years. That's the report out there from Charlie Shooter Walters. And you know what's fun? What's really funny about the offseason in the NFL is there's always stuff coming out, and there's always a reason for it. Is the team putting out things? Is the player or the player's agent putting out things? It's all a negotiation. We all know that. But it's just amazing how the reaction of some people can be. You know, if you're on the pro Kirk side, you loved hearing Kirk say, I want to stay here and I'm willing to take a team-friendly deal. And it's not about the money. It's about what the money represents. And you jump all on board that. And you jump all on board Kwesi saying, yeah, I want him back here, leaving out that he says for the right price for all intents and purposes. And then a report from a guy who has been in the Minnesota sports news media for decades. Well, that's Charlie Walters. He's not this, he's not that. Yeah, except that what he's reporting is in line with what Kirk Cousins should be asking for. You don't come out and say, yeah, I'll play for $10 million. Of course you're going to come out and say, yeah, I'm going to want what I'm worth. And let me be clear. I don't begrudge Kirk Cousins one bit if this report is anywhere near accurate. Absolutely. Go get your money. These players put their bodies on the line. They take all kinds of hits while these owners are making billions upon billions of dollars. So I don't begrudge him that. But there is no way I'm giving Kirk Cousins 2 years fully guaranteed. No chance. But we'll talk about it on both sides. But I just find it hilarious that in certain instances, we want to take what's reported as gospel. And in certain instances, we want to just say, well, that's just who knows if that's true or not. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Let me get some shout outs because I got some people in the building. I know, a little impromptu, a little later than the normal Tuesday clock time slot with me and Dave. Dave was on vacation last week, and he has his anniversary with his wife this week. So happy anniversary to brother Dave and his lovely wife. But let's get some shouts out. SKOL for Life, Barber, 1975. What is going on, Barber? Good to see you. Thank you so kindly for joining. Candyland Gaming, what's going on, Candyland? Good to see you. First time, everybody shout out Candyland. Everybody shout out Candyland. This is what we do, Candyland. When you put something in the chat and it's your first time, everybody will shout you out in the chat. So watch this chat blow up. Everybody say hello to Candyland. Appreciate you. My SKOL brother, SKOL Mafia, what is going on? Good to see you. Thanks. It's good to be back. I missed you guys too. Norsefius is in the building. What's going on, Norsefius? We got D-Will. Appreciate you as always, D-Will. Thanks for coming on by. Vikings fan 123. Thank you kindly for joining. We got Darian. What's up, Darian? Good to see you. Hey, y'all, my guy too. Each of you, and also every one of you. We got Nephew in the building. What's going on? JJ Vikes. If you don't know this guy to JJ Vikes, watch out. This young man's going to blow up and take over the world. He will be to Vikings content or to the Minnesota Vikings in some capacity what people hate about Taylor Swift, because people are going to be sick of this young man in about 10 years because he's just going to rule the world. But in all seriousness, thank you so kindly, Nephew, for joining. Appreciate you. I totally agree. Totally agree with your SKOL Mafia. Welcome to the Purple Gang family. Yeah, it started with rap, but we all affectionately go with Purple Gang. That is absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. Okay, now that the music has gone down, this is your first time, Candyland. And anybody else, if it's your first time here, I start out by shouting out people who put something in the chat. But I shout out a group of men and women who deserve more shout outs than any of these football players, than myself or any other content creator, because they're a very, very special group of men and women. What do I mean by that? Well, y'all know how this goes. If you've been here even once. Oh, sorry, Mafia. Got to cut your comment off while we do the bit here. First shout out of the night, as always, goes to the brave men and women who serve as our active and veteran members of all of the branches of our armed forces for fighting for and continuing to fight for our freedoms. And a special shout out also goes to their family members who have to sacrifice times away from their loved ones so that we can be the safe and free nation that we are. Second shout out goes to another group of brave men and women who serve as our law enforcement, our firefighters, and our EMS, who in times of tragedy are the ones running towards the danger while the rest of us are simply trying to get away from it. every time they put on that uniform and go to work, they are potentially putting their lives in peril. So we thank you for keeping us safe. And finally, to the doctors, nurses, surgeons, home health care workers, frontline workers, for always taking care of us when we have times of medical need. Their Super Bowl, speaking of Super Bowls, is potentially saving a life. These men and women at times can work very thankless jobs, and they do not get shouted out and thanks enough. So at the start of my show, I'm always going to say thank you to these brave men and women. So thank you very, very kindly for all that you do. Now, where did my other banner go? There it is. Wipe your feet at the door. If you didn't already do so, hit that like button. And if you don't already subscribe, hit that subscribe for me too. I'm just 45 away from 1,000. So if you know anybody consumes Viking content and they don't already subscribe to me, hit them up and say, hey, go check this guy out. He's halfway decent, but I digress. Got a couple more shout outs to do. We got Dave Thibodeau. What's going on, Dave? Shout out, Dave. What's going on, man? Good to see you. Good to see you. What's up, Greg G Max 72? Good to see you back, bro. Hey, it's good to be back. And yeah, it's the off season, but the train keeps rolling. Steady train. Keep it on rolling, you guys. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to talk mainly about the Cousins business, a little bit about the overall direction of the offseason, and then a touch on the AFC and NFC championship games, and a little bit of preview to the Super Bowl. I'm going to do another episode, probably not a live, with the actual Super Bowl preview. And there might be one or two versions, a standard version and maybe a tailored version. Who knows? We'll see. So let's start right off the bat with our guy, Kirk. Okay, let's go back in time about a year and set this whole thing up. This time a year ago, after coming off 13-4 and the exit in the wild card round of the playoffs, Kirk Cousins had 1 year left on his contract, and the Vikings offered him a 1-year extension. Kirk said, I'd kind of like to have more than one. I mean, we've been dating for this long. Why don't you put a ring on it? Why don't you give me 3 years? Vikings said, no, we want that flexibility. So we're happy to give you a 1-year extension, Kirk. And Kirk said, no, I want 3. The Vikings then came back and offered him a 2-year extension, but there was no guaranteed money in that second year. And you want to know what the difference is between a 1-year contract and a 2-year contract that only has guaranteed money in the first year? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Okay? So the Vikings and Kirk came to an impasse. And because the Vikings needed to free up salary cap space because of all of the moves that both Kwesi and the previous general manager, Rick Spielman, had made to get them into the salary cap situation they were in, they pushed money from Kirk Cousins' contract into void years. Now, Kirk still got his money. Okay, so this $25.5 million dead cap hit, that doesn't mean that the Vikings still owe Kirk Cousins $28.5 million. That's not the case. What it is they've already paid it, but they've never been charged that money. It's kind of like buying something with a credit card. Oh, I'm going to spend $500 on XYZ at Target or Amazon or Walmart, and eventually I'm going to have to pay the piper. That doesn't mean that Target, Amazon, or Walmart haven't already got their money. So that's the case. Now, with everything that we've heard, I can virtually guarantee you that the Vikings have already offered Kirk Cousins a 1-year contract extension, of which he has so far not accepted because, well, he's going to be a free agent in just a few weeks. Why would he take a 1-year deal when he can test the market? Now, before anybody can tell me, well, Justin, how do you know for certain that that's what the Vikings did last year? It was wildly reported by Ben Gessling of the Minneapolis Star Tribune. And he repeated it on multiple podcasts, the Access Vikings podcast, which is a Star Tribune podcast, as well as with Dan Barrero on KFAN. He reported these details. So no, I'm just not making it up out of thin air. Okay? So Vikings want Kirk for 1 more year. They wanted to draft a quarterback last year, didn't have the assets to get up high enough to the guy they loved because they wanted him to sit behind Kirk for 1 or 2 seasons. And that's the same thing that they want right now. And we don't know, and we'll find out more as we get closer to the draft, if they're actually going to be able to make a move to get to the top 3 like they weren't able to do last year, now that they have the number 11 pick. But they still want Kirk for 1 more year, and I don't blame them. Frankly, I'd let Kirk walk. I've made that clear, not because I don't think he's any good, but I just think you've gone as far as you can, and I don't think that you can really do anything meaningful with where this roster is at right now, and it needs to be rebuilt. It doesn't need to be taped up and just added to here and there. And I'll get back to that shortly. But yeah, isn't it funny how this past weekend The reports came out about how Kirk Cousins has progressed off of his Achilles injury and he's ready to start running and all these other things. And he's well ahead of any normal progress that somebody who suffered an injury that Kirk did. All of a sudden, a couple of days later, Kirk Cousins wants 2 years, $90 million fully guaranteed. Yeah, isn't that funny? What a coincidence. What an amazing coincidence. So here's the deal. The Vikings are probably willing to offer Kirk a second year with little to no guarantee money, which effectively isn't really offering him a second year. So they want him for one more year, and then they want to be done with him. That's the reality. Now, will the Vikings give in to Kirk Cousins' demand of 2 years fully guaranteed for $90 million because the owners say, if you don't have a better plan than Kirk, bring him back no matter what his money demands are? Maybe. That's a definite possibility. I'm not going to say it isn't. I wouldn't put it past the Wilfs because they don't like the idea of taking a step back. And Kirk Cousins, if nothing else, what does he do? He gives you a floor of 7 wins, which means you're not going to be horrible, but you're not going to be great. And it's not dare to be mediocre. It's dare to be great. So to me, I know that this is posturing by the Kirk Cousins camp, as posturing is always done. Every team does it. Every player does it. Every player agent does it. So this is not a, how dare Kirk want this money? Absolutely not. As I've said, Kirk, get as much money as you can. Just get it somewhere else. Because again, if you sign Kirk Cousins to this deal, you have one of two possibilities. If you sign Kirk to a 2-year extension for $90 million, that's $45 million, obviously, each year. Plus you got to add $10 million each year of that $28 million dead cap hit. So you'd be looking at cap hits of $55 million for the next 2 seasons. And you got to sign Justin Jefferson. You got to bring in some free agents to try to supplement this roster. Yes. Is there a way that you could finagle the salary cap to make it possible? And oh, by the way, Danielle Hunter, there's another one. That's at the top of my priority list. How are you going to sign all these players? Oh, well, we can structure their contracts where his cap hit this year will only be $25 million and his cap hit next year will only be $35 million. And then we'll have a $40 million dead cap hit, $40 million as opposed to 28.5. See, here's the thing about how these void years work. Literally all you are doing is using salary cap space from future years. And the thought process is, if you have a good enough team where you think you're just one player away or you're ready to go on a run, like in 2018, when you have a roster that you sincerely believe can compete for a Super Bowl, that's when you use the void year trick. But you only use it for 2 or 3 years. The Vikings have been using the void year trick more or less for the past 4 seasons. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. When they lost to the San Francisco 49ers, the last time the 49ers were in the Super Bowl, by the way, in the divisional round of the playoffs, and that was Stephon Diggs' last game, that was the closure of the window that the Vikings had from 2015 to 2019. But they didn't want to admit it to themselves. We're going to re-sign Kirk Cousins. We're going to sign him up for some void years. We're going to put void years on this person's contract and that person's contract. We're going to trade for Yannick Ngakoue, and we're going to compete in 2020. And then we went 7-9. Since we lost that divisional round game, ladies and gentlemen, there have been 4 seasons. And the Vikings have been under 500 3 out of those 4 times, outside of last year's 13-4. So they spent all of this money, kept pushing all of their chips in, kept spending future salary cap assets and capital for what? 3 out of 4 losing seasons. It's time to rip the Band-Aid off. Now, yes, if Kirk Cousins was willing to accept a 1-year deal, which he is not, by the way, we have adequate evidence to show last year he was not going to take a 1-year extension. He's not going to take one this year when he's a year older and his earning potential is going down because he's going to be 36 years old. So all of the nonsense about, well, maybe Kirk will take a 1-year deal. No, he's not. Okay. He's just not going to do it. Nor should he. He should not sell himself short that way. But what I am saying is simply this. If you do sign Kirk Cousins, all you're doing is taking the $28.5 million dead cap hit. People seem to think that, oh, just re-sign him and then it goes away. It doesn't go away. It just gets added to whatever new money you give him. If you owe $100,000 on your mortgage and you would do a cash out refinance and you take $30,000 worth of equity and get $30,000 worth of cash, that doesn't mean your mortgage is now just $30,000. It's still $130,000. And that's what these void years do. Well, Justin, if we sign Kirk Cousins and the first year his salary cap hit is only 35 million. Well, that's only what, 6.5 million more than what his cap hit was going to be anyway. Yeah, but then you're still pushing 18 of that million into the next set of void years. So no, I'm done. Rip the Band-Aid off, pay off your bills. And what's real funny, and this is what drives me crazy. Oh, the Vikings are in a much healthier salary cap situation than they have been the last couple of years. That in of itself is true. Up until this point, for the last couple of years of Rick Spielman and the first couple of years of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the Vikings have always been starting negative, kind of like not as bad as the Saints are. Okay, the Saints are almost $90 million in the hole. Okay, but the Vikings have somewhere between $25 and $35 million of available cap space, depending on which website you go to. Do you realize that we'd have 50 million more if we hadn't done all these void years? So that's like having $20,000 of credit card debt, and then you pay off like 15,000 of it. Okay, you still got a balance of 5,000. Oh, we got $15,000 that we can spend now because we just made a payment and brought our balance down. No, bring your balance to zero. And then in 2025, you have $130 million to play with, as opposed to, say, $80 million to play with. Now, $80 million is before you redo Justin Jefferson and or Danielle Hunter, plus whatever free agent you bring in this year. But the point I'm making is this: stop pushing off your debt. You have to pay the piper at some point. If you want to think that the salary cap is a myth, it's not a myth. You can manipulate it and continue. It's like, again, well, I'll take a new credit card and I'll do a balance transfer onto this credit card and I'll pay less each month than what I did before. I know I'm using a lot of money analogies here with the salary cap business, but this ridiculous notion that, oh, well, we can bring back Kirk Cousins and we can re-sign Justin Jefferson to his extension and we can bring back Danielle Hunter, and then what? We're going to lose Harrison Smith, so we'll get some money there. Okay, then you got to replace him. Okay, and then you're going to be bargain bin shopping in free agency, and you end up with players like Marcus Davenport. So here's how Marcus Davenport worked last year. We signed him to a 1-year, $13 million deal, but we only paid $6.3 million of it against the 2023 salary cap. The other 6.7 will go on the 2024 salary cap. So you want to bring back Marcus Davenport just so we can smooth out that dead money that we already have? I don't want to bring Marcus Davenport back. Never wanted him in the first place. You want to bring that guy back, throwing good money after bad? No, I'm sorry. So in summation here, bottom line, Kirk Cousins, he's a good, not great quarterback. He is definitely a very, very good quarterback, but he's not an elite quarterback. And the Vikings have too many holes on this roster for Kirk Cousins to overcome. I said this at the end of the year. If we had Patrick Mahomes, would we have been a playoff team? Yes. Would we have gotten to the divisional round of the playoffs? Yes. NFC Championship game, that's a stretch. But not even Patrick Mahomes could cover up all of the warts that this team has. So why are we going to pay Kirk Cousins roughly the same amount of money against the salary cap that we would pay Patrick Mahomes? Because we know Kirk Cousins can't do it. That doesn't mean I'm saying he's bad or that he's the problem. He's not the entirety of the problem. They brought Kirk Cousins in after going to the NFC Championship game. They threw all their chips in. They took their shots. And after that, they've made bad moves, and they've had a whole lot of bad drafts. Part of the reason that the 2015 to 19 window was what it was is because you hit on a lot of draft picks in 2015. And you hit on a good number of draft picks in 2014 as well. So in 2017, when we went to the NFC Championship game, a lot of our players, our star players, were on low or rookie contracts, which is why we had the kind of depth, the roster depth that we had, where we could lose our starting quarterback after one game, where we could lose our starting running back after 3.5 games and not bat an eye. The year before, we lost Teddy Bridgewater. What did we do? Brought in Sam Bradford. Didn't have a problem. Why? The Vikings were spending their salary cap dollars wisely. They weren't overpaying. They weren't trying to supplement their roster with veterans, free agents, because their drafts were so bad. So at the end of the day, no, it's not all Kirk Cousins. It's Kirk, his contract, Dalvin Cook's contract, Anthony Barr's contract, the lack of influx of young talent because our drafts have been terrible. At some point, stop trying to put duct tape over all the holes on this roster. And signing Kirk Cousins for 2 years, $90 million, what would that get you? Please tell me what that would get you. And I'm sorry, I got to call out some people. I really do. Well, if Kirk Cousins hadn't gotten hurt, we would be in the Super Bowl right now. Shut the front door. No, we would not. Well, look at how well that defense was playing. The defense got exposed in the last month of the season. Yeah, maybe they would have won a playoff game. I could listen to that. Beyond the divisional round, no. Well, this is why you just keep on fighting, because look at what happened to Philadelphia and Dallas. Everybody thought Philadelphia and Dallas were unbeatable. That has nothing to do with the price of tea in China. Oh, well, we beat San Francisco earlier in the year. We beat San Francisco by 5 points, and they had the ball, and we had to get a game-sealing interception. And you want to try and say that if Kirk Cousins hadn't gotten hurt, that means we could have gone on the road to San Francisco and beat those guys. Please. Well, we beat the Green Bay Packers by 14 points, and look at how different a team the Packers were in October than they were in December and January. I'm sorry. Yeah, we all want to love our team. We all want to hope our team does well, but let's stop with this nonsense that if Kirk Cousins hadn't gotten hurt, the Vikings would have gone on a run in the playoffs. I'm sorry. Oh, well, we almost beat the Lions at home with a backup quarterback throwing 4 interceptions. Whoop-de-ding-dong. If this. What, as Taylor would say, woulda, coulda, shoulda doesn't get you anywhere. It just doesn't. So I'm sorry. I'm going to get back to the chats here now, because I know I got a lot of people in here that I haven't shouted out yet. So I'm going to get to you guys in a minute. But no, it's a hard pass for me. One, because I'm not afraid if the Vikings decide to take a step back. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not saying that I want the team to lose. I'm not saying that I want the team to be bad. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is I'm done being content with being mediocre. And if you bring Kirk Cousins back, particularly at that price, I mean, you could bring Kirk Cousins back on a 2-year, $55 million contract where his cap hits, including his dead cap hits, dead cap numbers would be like 30 to 35 million. Even then, what does that get you? You get you mired in mediocrity. So that's a big heck to the no for me. You guys, if you haven't already done so, put it in the chat. Would you bring Kirk Cousins back for 2 years, $90 million? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. All right. Let me get some shout outs in here, because I've seen, I appreciate you, Greg. I appreciate you. I just hate that whoever comes along behind Kirk Cousins has a bad game. We'll hear nothing about how Kirk would have been better. Oh, that's the comment of the night so far, GMAC. There are going to be growing pains. You know what? 3 years ago, the Detroit Lions fired their head coach and fired their general manager, and they hit on their draft picks. Everybody said, well, Detroit hit on their draft picks. Yeah, because they had a lot of high draft picks and a lot of number ones, and they were forward thinking enough to take a good, not great quarterback in Matt Stafford and trade him and got 2 additional first-round picks. You want to just say something simple like, oh, well, if Kirk Cousins was in that game, he would have done better than Jared Goff. They wouldn't have been in that game in the first place because the roster construction would have been different. The notion that people cannot figure out what's called the butterfly effect is beyond me. But hate to break it to the Wills, but even with Kirk, we are fighting for second place. Thank you, GMAC. That's exactly where I was going. Achilles was a speed demon. You can't call an Achilles on Kirk. Tore his turtle. Shout out Norsefius. That's good. That's good. What's up? Shout out Dayon. What's going on? Good to see you. Good to see you. Here's my guy. Shout out my guy, Ryan. Sorry I'm late. As far as Kirk goes, oh, heck to the no if he wants to an absurd amount of money. Yes, J.J. Darius are the top priority, not a 36-year-old quarterback. I totally agree, Ryan. Thanks for coming, Ryan. I know it was impromptu, so you know what? As long as you made it here, it's all good. It is all good. Time for Kirk to change to play elsewhere. Build this team up in the trenches. Yes, Dan. Build this team up in a lot of places. Defensive line, offensive line, particularly on the interior on both sides. Again, you bring back Danielle Hunter. Yes, Danielle Hunter, I bring him back, and then I absorb his dead cap hits because he's only 29 or 30, not 36, and he's still an elite pass rusher. Definitely top 7 in my opinion. Shout out Vikings Funeral. What's going on, my brother? Shout out to the King. Good to see you. Appreciate you so very, very much for coming on by. Speaking of the King, there's this queen. What's up, Ashley? Thank you so much. Ashley, get on them people with the likes, would you? I mean, you're emeritus liker, so you get on that for me if you haven't done so already. I've heard and read the Vikings fans swearing up and down we have a loaded roster. Yeah, no, we do. It's ridiculous, Greg. I totally agree with you. It is totally ridiculous. Oh, you want to know what the problem with the Vikings roster is and has been for the last 4 or 5 years? Is that they're very top heavy. They do have a lot of top end talent, but they don't have depth, and they haven't had depth since 2017. Part of the reason they had depth in 2017 is this. Rick Spielman was still hitting on draft picks at that point. But part of the reason you lost a lot of your roster depth is because you started paying players, your existing players. Again, Harrison Smith, Xavier Rhodes, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Kirk Cousins you brought in. Eventually, you then give Anthony Barr. Eventually, you then give Dalvin Cook. Well, when you're just giving more money to your existing players, you're not bringing in anybody new, and you're sacrificing some of your roster depth. So, yes, everybody can say, well, it was a freak injury to Jefferson and a freak injury to Kirk Cousins. Here's the problem. When you have no depth, you have no margin for error. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm really not. I'm trying to be realistic here. The notion that this team has a loaded roster is utterly preposterous. It is utterly preposterous. So I'm sorry. Shout out Angel Dust. What's going on? I appreciate you. I've only got a few more minutes. I got about 20 minutes left at best in me because I got to pick up Mini Me from play rehearsal. So I said, you know what? I got to get in on this. Shout out Jody. What's going on? Good to see you. It's been a minute, but we didn't. Yes, but we didn't. We went 4-4 with Kirk Cousins and then went 3-6 without him. Oh, well, if Kirk hadn't gotten hurt, we would have been what? 9-8, maybe 10-7 as opposed to 7-10. I'm sorry. Thank you so very, very much, Jody, for coming on by here. Everybody shout out Jody. I know she's been here once or twice, but everybody shout out Jody again anyway. We need a full we don't need a full rebuild. We need a massive retooling is what I call it, Vikings fan 123. And I'll say it like this. A full rebuild would be to trade Justin Jefferson and completely tear it down to the studs. And I am not suggesting that. I am suggesting we re-sign Danielle Hunter, we extend Justin Jefferson, and then we get our quarterback of the future. And if that means we have to trade up to the top 3 and get him, again, I'm partial to Drake May, but I would take Drake May or Jaden Daniels. I'll take either one of those two guys. And yeah, okay, if we got Caleb Williams, I'd be okay with him too. But I think he's out of reach. It doesn't need to be a full rebuild because that's what a full rebuild would be. A full rebuild would be to trade Justin Jefferson, get a couple extra first-round picks, and all that good stuff. They need a lot of serious retooling. What they need to do is they need to stop throwing good money after bad by re-signing players that are over the age cliff because they're legacy players. I used to say guys like Thielen, guys like Kendricks, we called them sacred cows. It's time to put the sacred cows out to pasture. It's time to just take some lumps. It's going to not be the best for a year, maybe or two, but you come out on the back end better than you do staying mediocre. In fact, Norsvia said it right here, forever mediocre with Cousins. Yes, Cousins prevents you from being a 3-win team if he stays healthy. But how far are you going to get? Because you can only build up so much of the roster around him. And I'm not saying that it's his fault. I'm not saying it like that. But shout out Papa Gary. What's going on, Gary? Well, good to see you. I appreciate you so very much. Dave says absolutely not. Vikings fan says let Kirk if he wants that. Absolutely. Shout out Vikings Funeral with the $25 super chat. I appreciate you. He says also 90 million is too much. I totally agree. Shout out Grandpa Dave. If you don't already subscribe to Vikings First and SKOL, both on their YouTube page as well as the podcast feed on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast aggregator, hit us up with a sub there too. Sign Kirk to all 90 million. Pay him for the rest of my life. Continue to not win anything. Let's do it. I appreciate you, Dave. I appreciate it. Let Kirk walk if he wants $5. And there you go. I would rather take multiple F5s from Brock Lesnar than take Kirk Cousins back at that price. Okay. If you do that, you must be out of your daggone mind. I totally agree. And again, here's the thing. There are some in this fan base that are content with being mediocre because they would rather be mediocre for forever than ever be bad. Well, how long is it taking the Lions to be that bad? It's not the point. You have to reset every time they get a new general manager and or a new head coach. You can't look at 30 years. You have to look at the last 3 years because that's what you do when you bring somebody else to run the ship. And you know what, Wilfs? Allow Kwesi to run the ship. Allow him to do what he wants to do. They didn't hire the guy that went to Chicago, Poles. Why? Because Poles wanted to do a full teardown and start over. And guess what? Yeah, we wouldn't have had 2022. And it was a fun season. As I've made mention on this a few times. I took my daughter, somebody very dear to me, and her son. The four of us went, and that was my daughter and her son's first game, that Colts game, that comeback. It was great, but what did it get us? It got us a first-round exit. Well, I made lots of memories with the four of us that day. Yeah, you know what? You can make more, preferably with us winning a Super Bowl, or at least getting to one. Could you imagine if the Lions had won the other day? And in most of our lifetimes, we would have then seen the Lions go to the Super Bowl before we saw the Vikings go to the Super Bowl. I'm sorry. Hear you, Justin. Same song and dance. You're time to. It is overdue for this team to get younger, better. Yes, Take the long view approach. Short-term pains, long-term gains. Doesn't mean that I want them to lose. It just means that I want them to get out of mediocrity. All right, Miss Ashley. Now, again, I know that this was 6 minutes ago, but 16 likes with 20. Come on, y'all. Hit that like button. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything to hit that like button or the subscribe button if you haven't done so already there. All right, so a whole lot of hellos and how's everybody doing? Yes, thank you, Miss Ashley. I appreciate you. Retooling. Yes, thank you, GMAC. That's a much better way to do it. Vikings need to do what the DC is doing with their upcoming move. Keep your home run hitters, super bats. Okay, I see what you're saying. Listen, you keep Jefferson. Obviously, you got Addison. TJ Hawkinson. Oh, by the way, TJ Hawkinson reportedly had successful ACL surgery. When is the last time anybody had unsuccessful surgery? I would like to ask, but I digress. Yeah, there you go. I'd be comfortable at 35 million, but that'd be absolutely ceiling for Kirk, in my opinion. Yeah, and here's the thing about it, funeral. Here's the thing about it. In order for it to be 35 million, the actual contract would have to be 25 million because he's going to have 10 on top of whatever he gets. Yes, as I said a moment ago, if he signed a 2-year, $55 million deal where 1 year it's 25 and 1 year it's 30, and therefore the cap hits respectively are 35 and 40, I still wouldn't because I'm just ready to rip the Band-Aid off, but I could at least tolerate that. I could say, okay, well, taking a $5 million discount. Like, let's say the Vikings signed Kirk Cousins to 2 years, $80 million. Oh, Kirk took a discount. No, he didn't. Taking a discount would be the 50 to 55 million range, not the 75 to $80 million range. So yes, if his cap hit is 35 million, I'm still kind of still gives me the heebie-jeebies, but I could live with it, I guess is what I would say. Shout out to Dave. Yes, Sharif Floyd. Okay, you got me there, Dave. You absolutely got me there. But you know what? I'm going to put this one up here. Yeah, I texted with Mary the other day. Prayers up for Mary still. She's still having some health issues. I'm not at liberty to go too much further into that. It is her story to tell and not mine. But yes, keep your prayers up for Mary. She's okay. She's had her ups and downs and still kind of needs our thoughts and prayers. I will just leave it at that. There we go. All right. I'm sick of mediocre for 46 years. I think it's about daggone time we actually get a quarterback worth something. Keep JJ Addison, get rid of Kirk. Thank you, Jody. Took the words right out of my mouth. Absolutely. At the end of it, you want to go back to being a team that has a good quarterback that you're going to be somewhere between 7 and 10 wins, maybe 11, and out in the first round and maybe division round of the playoffs. Hold on just a second, guys. Sorry about that. Shout out T Bass in the building. What's going on, my brother? Good to see you. Okay. The AFC and NFC championship games. I'm not going to rile too much on this. And again, I've got about 12 more minutes before I get up out of here. So I just wanted to give you guys my thoughts on that. First off, don't blame Lamar Jackson. All the Kirk stands want to say, see, this is why Lamar Jackson, he's overrated. Yeah, a guy who's about to win his second MVP and who's actually been to this thing called the conference championship games is overrated, but and Kirk's better than him. Stop it. Yes, I said it at the time. I would have offered Lamar Jackson a contract. I would have been willing to part with 2 first-round picks and then traded away Kirk Cousins to get one of the first-round picks back. I absolutely would have done it. The Baltimore Ravens handed the ball off 6 times to their running backs, a team that was number 1 in the NFL in rushing. And no, it wasn't just because of Lamar Jackson. It was because they were a good rushing team. I don't know what the heck they were thinking. What a completely awesome touchdown pass from Lamar Jackson, where he slithers out of a sack and throws a dime to Jay Flowers, who makes a diving catch. I put this one on the coaching. I really do. Now, yes, the turnovers. Yes, it was a bad interception that Lamar threw. Unlucky, but have we not figured out stop reaching for the goal line unless it's 4th down? Stop reaching for the goal line. The Kansas City Chiefs almost had one of those against Buffalo. They ultimately managed to overcome it. The Baltimore Ravens shot themselves in the foot. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs going back to the Super Bowl for the 4th time in 5 seasons. You know what? Whether you love the Chiefs, whether you like or love or hate Patrick Mahomes, this guy's just greatness. This guy is the Michael Jordan. And I know some people rooted against Michael Jordan because, I'm sick of seeing Michael Jordan winning. I don't hate Patrick Mahomes. Why? Because I'd love to have him on my team. And can we stop with this Taylor Swift nonsense? It's not that big of a deal, folks. Jack Nicklaus was on the tube all throughout the 80s and beyond at Laker games. Do we ever say, I'm sick of seeing Jack Nicklaus at Laker games? No, we never said that. Spike Lee at Knicks games, Bulls games. Did we ever say, I'm sick of seeing Spike Lee? Stop putting the camera on Spike Lee. No, we never did that either. Taylor Swift gets less than half of 1% of TV time during games. So stop. If you don't like her music, that's fine. If you're not a Swiftie, that's okay. But this ridiculous notion of Taylor Swift is ruining football. Shut up. No, she's not. Leave it alone. Who cares? Last year, the same people that said, isn't it cool that the Kelsey brothers are in the Super Bowl playing against each other? And what's it like for Mama and Papa Kelsey? All of a sudden now have a problem that Travis Kelsey is dating Taylor Swift and, she's in the press box. Like we've never seen, like we didn't see Brett Favre's wife in the press box the last 10 years of his career, both when he was still with the Green Bay Packers and the Jets and the Vikings. Why is this an issue? Why does this bother people? And I'm not saying, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. I just don't care either way. And I don't understand why people complain about it. But anyway, moving on. Patrick Mahomes, if he wins, if the Chiefs win, he's getting into Brady territory. He's not there yet. Talent-wise, he's got more talent. And yes, he's done a lot of what Brady has done. And yeah, Brady did it for many decades, and Mahomes isn't there yet, and we'll see. Maybe Travis Kelsey, if they win, maybe he retires because he wants to retire with his brother. So they can go in the Hall of Fame together and that he and Taylor can start making some super babies. I don't know. Doesn't matter to me. All I know is I kind of feel bad for Lamar. I kind of wanted Lamar to win because I think he's still being underrated. But, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're doing it differently. They're doing it with defense. Mahomes is just kind of doing what is necessary to win, which is what winners do. They don't say, well, I couldn't hear my coach, so I wasn't sure if I should spike the ball or throw it and get intercepted. You don't have that problem with Patrick Mahomes. In the NFC side, let's go back 1 week. The San Francisco 49ers were almost eliminated by that team to the east. That team to the east had it. They had it, and they let him off the hook. This will be the last time I will ever do this bit because it's not worked out very well for the Vikings every time I have. But I will just say this one more time. The Packers are done. The Packers are done. Okay. And I'll just let the late, great Cesar Romero have the last word on that, too.
Oh, how delicious it is.
It was absolutely delicious. The Green Bay Packers completely outplayed the San Francisco 49ers, and they let it get away. Okay. Back to the NFC Championship game. The Detroit Lions absolutely had it and let them off the hook. 24-7 at halftime. Could you imagine? I don't feel bad for Lions fans because they've been peacocking a little bit too much for winning the division for the first time ever since it's been the North, and for the first time in 30 years winning a playoff game. You're getting a little too high on the hog. But I'm going to say this. We were kind of a little too high on the hog on Sunday when they lost, talking about, hey, not everybody can beat San Francisco. Again, as I said earlier, let's not take some rando game in October as gospel. But having said that, Dan Campbell, I know you're the riverboat gambler. And to a certain extent, I understand. I'm not saying that they were bad decisions, but I could live with the first fourth down that he went for, and it was a good throw. It was on target. It was rushed a little bit. Should have caught the ball. But in the fourth quarter, you got to tie that game up. And I know his field goal kicker is somewhat unreliable, and if he misses it, it gives him 7 more yards. Well, the 49ers scored a touchdown anyway, so I don't think those 7 extra yards would have mattered. To me, you got to tie that game up. But how you call a running play on 3rd and goal with just over a minute left, and you still have all 3 of your timeouts is beyond me. And even he said, yeah, I wish I could take that one back. You lost any chance of winning that game. Any chance of winning that game, you lost it by running the ball on 3rd down. Just, I don't know what to say. And I'll say this for the Super Bowl, just a quick preview. San Francisco, you better not wait until the second half to wake up, because the Chiefs if the Lions can put up them kind of points against your defense, yeah, the defense tightened up in the second half. I'll give you that. Outside of that touchdown, I'm not going to call it a garbage touchdown, but they were playing it different with a 10-point lead, just trying to run the clock out and make them use as much time as they did. But Kansas City is going to have something for that defense too. So if San Francisco wants to win, you can't wait till the middle of the 3rd quarter before you start waking up. That's just not going to work. Not going to work against Patrick Mahomes and company. And they've got a good defense now. Could you imagine the Kansas City Chiefs with this year's defense and the offenses that they've had in previous years? It would just be ridiculous, but you could say that about a lot of teams. So with all that being said, it's a week and a half away, and I can't wait. I think it's going to be a great game. This is going to be the 8th or 9th time we've had a Super Bowl rematch. So I think San Francisco, I haven't made my official pick yet. I think San Francisco should win this game, but I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes. So we'll do a bit more previewing of the game and talking about it in the upcoming week and a half here. But I think it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a sea of red out in Las Vegas. If you're a gambling person, take Kansas City in the points. If you're just having a rooting interest, that's all I really want is I just want a good game. I just want a good, clean, entertaining game. But I digress. Let me get some shouts in here, and then we'll get up out of here in a little bit. And one more thing I wanted to get to, but let's see. Jody says, I love the Taylor Swift thing. Okay, cool. And that's fine. Absolutely. I just think it's ridiculous that there's so many people that are, detracting from the situation for absolutely no reason. There you go. T-Bass says Taylor was never on TV. Oh, T-Bass, I missed you. I absolutely missed you. Oh, did I say Nicholson? You know what I meant. I meant Jack Nicholson. I'm sorry. It's been a couple weeks. I'm a little. I got to get back into the group. Thank you, GMAC, for bringing that up. But anyway, I never thought when I bought my house 5 years ago that my Mahomes jersey would be such an investment. There you go. Or yes, that's another one. Absolutely. Nobody had problems with it before. I don't understand it. Yes, that's the thing, Jody. Lots of comedians in that. There's always a good gallows humor during the shows there. Shout out Caesar. What's going on? Move on from Kirk and build Kwesi and KOC's teams. If not, they aren't really running this team. Yes, absolutely. And I've said that a couple of times. You fired Rick Spielman, and then you handcuff Kwesi and say you got to play by the same playbook, and you're expecting different results. Why? You keep running it back with the same quarterback who's going to cost you market value, who's going to prevent you from making as many free agent moves as you'd like. You're constantly bargain bin shopping because you have to move money into future years, and therefore you always got dead cap hits. Again, $50 million in dead cap hits for 3 players, Kirk Cousins, Danielle Hunter, and Marcus Davenport. That's 50 extra million you could have if you hadn't been always doing these moves. And people say, well, it's not just Rick Spielman. Kwesi did some of these too. I'm like, yeah, because he just got the job and he had a job requirement from the Wilfs to say, no, we're not taking a step back. So do what you need to do to keep our team competitive. Competitive for what? The playoffs. That's nice to an extent. But at some point, being mediocre is not enough. Good to be back, Gary. Thank you so very, very kindly. Doing it with defense. There's a thought. There you go. 4th and Campbell. There you go. Shout out SKOL Mafia for the 1999 Super Chat. Welcome back. I appreciate you, my brother. I appreciate you. The Vikings beating San Francisco this year set the Vikings back years. There is an argument to be made because I said going into that game, if you lose this game and you're 2-5, trade Danielle Hunter, trade Harrison Smith, do what you did with Ezra Cleveland and trade off pending free agents and get some assets back. And then they went ahead and beat San Francisco. I said, okay, fine. But then when you lose Kirk Cousins, you still could have pivoted back to if you had lost and traded away pieces. Wouldn't it be nice to have another 2nd-round pick right now for Danielle Hunter, particularly if we don't re-sign him? Then you let him walk for nothing, all to do what? All to go 3-6 and be picking at 11, as opposed to you might have been, I don't know, 1-8, 2-7, and be picking at 6 or 5 or higher. Yeah, great idea. Good forward thinking. But again, and by the way, people are saying, well, Kwesi took a poll in the locker room and he said, no, let's keep going. You're not the general manager to go take a survey of the team to say, hey, should I trade away pieces and should we just punt on this year? No, you make a decision based on what is best for the long-term viability of the team. But anyway. Yeah, those two, Northfish, you're right. And by the way, if we had just lost to New Orleans, we'd be picking at number 6 and New Orleans would have made the playoffs instead of Green Bay. But anyway. What's done is done. Shout out in the Zone podcast. What's going on, Zoe? Good to see you. Good to see you. If you don't already subscribe to my guy, Zoe, hit him up as well. Yeah, I'll get back to it. I've been having to run the kid around, and then I said, you know what, I got to do something. It's been 2 weeks, so that's going to be on my agenda as soon as I get done here to go pick her up and check you out. So after the show, go check out Zoe's show tonight, for real. Shout out, brother. What's going on, Dylan? Good to see you. Thank you so much. He said, heck, nah. I feel you. I'm still waiting. I don't think I've seen anybody who said that they would take Kirk Cousins back at that price. Yes, there's been the obligatory funeral, for example. Yeah, I would take him back, but I would cap it at 30 to 35 million. I've still yet to see it. Is there anybody in the chat right now that would give Kirk Cousins 2 years, 90 million? If so, speak now or forever hold your peace. With Ben Johnson staying in Detroit, how does it affect the draft? Taking more with Washington with the second pick, maybe. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Oh, we're not that far away from Detroit, and they're going to lose Ben Johnson, so they're going to have to go through a whole nother system, a whole new quarter. Oh, whoops! Looks like Ben Johnson's staying. So, yeah, the Vikings are not that close. They just need to take a year and pay off their debts, get younger, start developing guys, and come back next year with a bucket load of high draft picks and a bucket load of money to spend. But if he's running his drafting stuff this, yeah, I'd give him an incomplete. Got to give him credit for Jordan Addison, but yes, the Lewis Cine bits without question. But again, is he really running it, or is he just the spokesperson and he's just carrying the Will Swatter? I don't know. We'll see. Just think if we were able to trade Kirk to Atlanta for a first after that. Yeah. Now, granted, Atlanta's pick would be higher than what it currently is because they probably would have made a playoff push, maybe as a wild card, or maybe even caught the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the division. So it would probably be in the 20s. But yes, you could have traded Kirk and got a first, maybe, or a couple of seconds and some change. Either way, you could have traded Danielle Hunter for a late first, maybe a second and some change, and we'd be better off. But I digress. Shout out, Sarah. What's going on, Queen? Good to see you. For anybody who doesn't know, that is total sarcasm from Sarah. But thanks for joining. I appreciate it. What's going on, Tyson? Good to see you. Cousins, 12 million, 2 years. That's it. There is no chance on this planet or any planet in the multiverse where Kirk Cousins would take that. Nor should he. Again, let me be clear. I'm not saying that Kirk Cousins owes the Vikings anything and that, well, we've given you this much money. You should just take, $5 million a year for the next 3 years and do a payback to the team because you've been here for how many years and gotten one playoff win. It was not all Kirk's fault. No, it's not all his fault, but he's not absolved from blame either. So I'm just going to say it like that. Tyson, I might consider doing it at that price, but there is negative infinity chance that Kirk Cousins would take a deal like that. I said do it. It was sarcasm. Oh, did you? I must have scrolled by. I missed you. I'm sorry, my brother. But either way, yes, I'm well aware of where you guys are at. So you're in the same boat I am. And again, that doesn't mean we're saying that. Some people are going to look at this and say, Justin, you're a Kirk Cousins hater. You say he sucks. I never said he sucked. I just said you can't win a Super Bowl with him. Not with where this roster is at. And my goal is not to be competitive for maybe making the 7 seed or maybe squeaking in and maybe having a 50-50 shot of winning a wild card round game. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a team. If I have to take 1 step back to take 2 steps forward, I'm willing to do that. But a lot of the fan base isn't. And so far, the owners have shown that they're not willing to do it. Trade Smith, Booth Jr. scene, Osborne matters. Well, Osborne's a free agent. I don't know what kind of trade market you could find. You're not going to trade Harrison Smith. Either Harrison Smith's going to take a restructure and take less money again, or he's going to retire. Harrison Smith is one guy, unless he says, you know what, go ahead and shop me. You don't do that. That's one thing you don't do. But I don't think anybody would trade anything for Harrison Smith. And I don't think anybody would trade anything for Madison either. Booth, you might be able to get a 6th round pick for, maybe a 5. Lewis Cine, a bag of footballs and a jug machine, maybe. I mean, yeah, it's a great idea, Tess. I would do that, but I don't know that there's much of a market for them. So, Mafia Rap and Adam looking at coming to the draft. Oh, okay. I'll let you guys go on with that. Well, here's the thing, though. It was kind of impromptu because I didn't go last night. And as I said earlier, Dave was on vacation last week, and he's got an anniversary dinner with his wife tonight. So I was like, you know what? I haven't gone live in 2 weeks. So I said, you know what? I'm going to get some time in here. So with all that said, my alarm is about to go off and say, hey, go pick up your kid. But I digress. So, any other good comments in here before you? Kirk had an MVBC. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so very, very much. JJ 20. Okay. We'll get into the JJ discussion another time. I got to get out of here and go pick up the kid. So on your way out, wipe your feet on the door. At the door, hit that like button if you didn't hit it on the way in. If you don't already subscribe to Purple and Gopher Days, hit that subscribe button for me. See, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I told you. Anyway, hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to Vikings First and SKOL, both on YouTube as well as their podcast feed. Dave, I will text you when I get back home to see when I'll be able to get something cut up for you. I seriously doubt it'll be anything tonight, but just for the record, just to let you know that. With all that said, don't know what the schedule is. The life situation on many fronts has gotten to a certain level of crazy right now. And that's a little bit of the reason why I haven't been on as much as I have been, but I will be. And I want to thank every one of you guys and gals for coming out tonight. As always, the loyalty and the support. I can't thank you guys enough. I really can't. I'm going to put Zoe's page here in the chat right now, since Gary asked what his page was. So go on over to my guy Zoe, check out his page, hit the like buttons on his videos, hit that subscribe button, show some support to other fellow content creators. That is it for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. As always, SKOL to the next episode. And if the elevator brings you down, go crazy and punch a higher floor. Thanks again for joining, and good night.